from the news team that's covering the Carolinas, this is Channel 9 Eyewitness News at 11.
Tonight, breaking news in uptown Charlotte. Around 8:30 tonight, gunshots rang out just feet from the epicenter, and a person was shot after peaceful protests erupted, crowds pushing through the streets, blocking traffic, even police cruisers.
Now that shift forced the officers to once again put on their tactical gear, and we had some crews out there covering the story out there on the ground the moment when those deafening shots went off.
Over to this side. Looks like they have dispersed. We got something louder going on here. Come up to this car. Get up under this car. Okay. Shots fired. Shots fired.
Tonight, Chief Kurt Putney did confirm that one person was shot. That person now is on life support, according to the city of Charlotte.
You saw all those people running, just scared to death. We did have crews out there on the ground, but we have moved all of our crews now out of the uptown area for their safety. We brought them back here to the studio, and we are continuing to cover this from the safe vantage point of Chopper 9 Sky Zoom, still flying over uptown right now, and you are looking at these pictures live from Center City.
This is near Caldwell and Trade Street, right by Time Warner Cable Arena, the Transit Center, and the Hyatt Hotel, as we see police in riot gears once again at a standoff with protesters, this time in uptown Charlotte. The manager of the Hyatt Hotel says there was damage to the front of that hotel, glass, windows, and doors broken. 2 employees of the Hyatt assaulted, according to the manager out there. And we see police making a very slow move toward these protesters, but there's so many streets crisscrossing in uptown Charlotte. As police move in, they can just move out and regather anywhere else in a matter of seconds. So some very frightening moments playing out in the heart of our city tonight. We thank you for being with us. I'm Scott Wickersham.
I'm Erica Bryant, and we've been covering this major story for you, impacting people all across the Charlotte area, gathering national attention for the past 30 hours now. And in just a short time ago, we received a new update from Governor Pat McCrory about the emergency response, the extra assistance that's coming to Charlotte to help. He says that the State Bureau of Investigation already has some staffers here trying to help the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police.
And now we have a snippet of what McCrory said tonight. He says upon a very recent request from CMPD Chief Kurt Putney, the State Highway Patrol is sending in troopers to further help the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. The state has many additional assets nearby to assist. The governor said violence directed toward our citizens or our police officers or destruction of property will not be tolerated. Also hearing about the mobile field force being deployed, which includes 50 troopers in tactical gear to assist CMPD, and many more are now on standby.
And a short time ago, I also spoke with Mayor Jennifer Roberts of Charlotte. She says the Department of Justice, even from Washington, will be sending in staffers tomorrow to help us tactical as well. And so they're going to get some extra assistance from Washington as well. And we did have those crews out there here locally on the ground gathering a bigger story. But as the protests grew and moved across the city and turned violent, again, we brought all of those crews back to the station here for safety reasons. We want to start our coverage right now, continue with Eyewitness News reporter Paul Boyd.
He was out there with our security expert Ross Bulla tonight. They were in uptown near the epicenter when those shots were fired. They join us now in the Breaking News Center to talk about what they saw and heard. Paul?
Yes, Scott and Erica, 15 minutes before that man was shot tonight, Ross and I were doing a Facebook Live, separated from one of our camera crews in different parts of the city, getting different vantage points, and the atmosphere uptown changed drastically. We were recording that Facebook Live and captured the shooting about 50 feet away from us. We're going to show you the video, and Ross described the scene, what was happening right as the moments leading up to that shooting happened here.
Well, we noticed obviously the crowd immediately started running, and we learned later that someone started brandishing a gun and people started screaming a warning. Shortly thereafter, we heard the gunshot and we took immediate cover.
And again, 15 minutes before this moment, it started to escalate. The riot gear came out, and you could feel that tension.
It was palpable.
And there's the moment that the gunshot rings out.
Yep. So
you say shots fired, shots fired.
Shots fired. Warned you.
You covered stories in the Middle East. I've been in the Middle East. It was pretty clear that was a gunshot
It was
in that moment.
obvious it was gunshot, and it was not any type of munitions from law enforcement. So
now,
we took
you
cover.
actually went in to try and help. You're a trained EMT.
Yeah.
You said, I'm going to try and help this guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was right there within 10 feet of me, so I had to go in and try to render aid. It was obvious that that he was very seriously injured, and not much I could do for him.
And people stood over him. We know he's
Yeah.
on life support now, according
Yeah.
to the city, but people stood over him saying, he's dead, he's dead.
Yeah, they were telling me he was dead, and it was obvious to me there was not much I could do, and my safety was at risk. They were threatening me with harm. They saw me clearly as an enemy, and I had to retreat for safety.
So you came out from another vantage point. You can also see that police, because of the chaos going on, weren't even aware around the corner that this shooting had happened. So over the next 2 or 3 minutes, we actually went to the police and said, a man is shot,
We notified
bleeding
him.
profusely right over there because no one was moving.
And I believe that the uniformed officers thought that the tactical officers had deployed munitions.
And again,
So
we're not being
we're not
critical
blaming
of
them
CMPD.
at all. No,
This was
This is
comparable to a war zone,
dynamic
folks.
chaos.
Exactly. So they called medic responded, they've transported him, and again,
Yeah.
just to be perfectly clear, we are being told by the city that he's on life support. Chief Putney said that he was deceased,
Right.
medic said he was deceased, so some conflicts there,
Yeah.
but we'll get to
Working
the
to
bottom of
confirm
that,
that.
and when we certainly
Yep.
hope for a recovery, but let's show you one last moment, the moment of the shooting as it unfolded here, and we'll come back and wrap up.
That we can do.
All right, we're going to get ourselves over to this side. Looks like they have dispersed. We got something louder going on here. Come up to this car. Get up under this car. Okay, shots fired. Shots fired.
Heartbreaking to see that, to be so
Yeah.
close to that. Not to editorialize, but it was not a moment that I look at, and it's a sad day for Charlotte, everything that's unfolding there.
Yeah, very unfortunate, and I'm still kind of processing the entire evening. I mean, it's very compelling video. It's just
Heartbreaking,
Yeah.
heartbreaking. For now, we'll get it back to you over the desk. I wanted to share some of that with you guys.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Well,
Glad
thanks.
both of you are safe tonight. Again, we heard about that incident, a civilian-on-civilian shooting, but also now CMPD has been telling us that an officer has been transported to the hospital as well with injuries. So we're going back to show you the images again, the live picture from Chopper 9 at this hour, where still hours later, what began as a peaceful protest ebbed and flowed, turned violent, erupted into gunfire. People are still milling about uptown, and that peaceful protest started just after 4:30 this afternoon, and here we are well after 11 o'clock tonight, and they're still in the streets.
We did see some tear gas right before we came out to Chopper 9 here. We saw some tear gas being fired. This is Trade and Caldwell. So again, this is the largest group that we are seeing right now. This is again right next to the Hyatt Hotel on the corner, Time Warner Cable Arena as well, and on the bottom left of your screen, that's the Federal Reserve Bank. Now we see people, a few people running, and because of tear gas. Okay, so you see in the top middle of your screen right there, some of those puffs of smoke in front of the Hyatt. That is apparently tear gas being fired by police in riot gear, who you can see are now slowly marching toward that intersection. The problem we've seen, Erica, is that some people are not as affected by tear gas as others. You see a couple of smoking and burning canisters right here. People have been picking those up, and we might even see people approaching them now and actually throwing them back at police. Now, police are wearing a gas mask, but the gas has had a minimal effect, as they're now not sparingly at all firing off their tear gas canisters. It seems like they got several people now firing off those tactical rounds, as Ross called it. You see more flashes in the air here and another flash there. So they are really making an effort to clear out this intersection and firing a lot of tear gas.
And it appears that they're taking these steps because, as we said, we've seen this erupt into people getting very seriously injured, with that civilian being hit by gunfire, with an officer being injured as well. And we just got off the phone a short time ago. Eyewitness News anchor Allison Latta spoke with an official at the Hyatt House Hotel on Caldwell and Trade Street there. And he told Allison that protesters had, quote, destroyed the hotel, blowing out windows, and attacked 2 employees. And we have video now from CNN. In one shot, you can see the broken out windows, graffiti there on the windows. And just before this, we saw a person kicking out one of the windows. So this continued to escalate into injuries, gunshots, destruction of property.
We've been also asking medic, trying to get a better idea of how many people have been injured tonight. We might not know for sure because the number has been fluctuating, but some people have been hurt.
They tell us they've taken at least 3 people to area hospitals. One was that gunshot victim, a civilian we told you about. The city just putting in a statement correcting, saying the person is on life support. And then 2 other people suffered non-life-threatening injuries. A medic could not tell us if those 2 other injuries are police or protesters. But again, we also heard a short time ago 1 officer taken to the hospital with injuries. Just in the past 30 minutes, we've seen officers in that riot gear taking people into custody in the middle of this intersection right near the epicenter and the transit center.
I know we have many other stories, but want to stay with these live pictures from Chopper 9 for just a moment. Is now at the corner of Trade and Caldwell. You see that the police are there in their tactical gear, and they've now made it to this intersection. You can see the tracks for the trolley are right there. The straight tracks are where the trolley goes from right there in front of Time Warner Cable Arena to Elizabeth at Novant Presbyterian Hospital. The curved tracks are where the trolley actually goes around Time Warner Cable Arena and gets on. So every night at the end it gets off the tracks there. So that's, if you're familiar with the uptown area here, what you're looking at near the Hyatt Hotel. The tear gas appears to have had some effect as this intersection is cleared out. So we're going to continue to monitor these live pictures and see where those crowds move on to next.
And again, those who are at home, you are urged by officials, by religious leaders and others to stay at home. Do not try to venture out into uptown. They don't want any more individuals caught up in what has been an escalating, ebbing and flowing scene where people are getting hurt, and it's very dangerous. So they are asking everybody to try to stay at home, stay away from uptown, so they can do what they need to do to de-escalate this situation fully. And also, CATS shut down their Charlotte Transit Center for the rest of the night. The Gold Line is closed. No streetcar service until tomorrow, and those are the tracks they're standing on right there. So we again see this intersection here live on continuing coverage of this breaking story on Channel 9 Eyewitness News. We have many more updates on our Facebook page, WSOCTV.com as well. We're going to take a quick break and try to gather the latest information, and we will be right back. To be first.
You need to know how breaking news affects you and your family.
That's how Channel 9 Eyewitness News is covering the Carolinas.
Tonight's weather is driven by
Toyota of North Charlotte, I-77 exit 23 in Huntersville.
where big city low prices are just a click away.
Levine Children's Hospital is the crown jewel of the Carolinas, and these superheroes are the protectors and defenders of children and childhood. Join them as they kapow kidney failure, crunch congenital heart defects, and chop childhood cancer. Go to the website and look at all the different ways you can get involved. With your help, Carolina's children can soar to new heights, happy, healthy, and free.
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot.
Donald Trump is a phony, a fraud.
He's not a serious adult.
I can't vote for Donald Trump given the things that he said.
Trump should not be supported.
Live coverage continues right now from the center of uptown Charlotte. We have Chopper 9 Sky Zoom bringing you these live pictures for the past couple of hours. One person has been shot in uptown, a civilian who is on life support, a civilian on civilian shooting. And we also learned at least one officer has been injured and transported to the hospital as well. In these live pictures, we see some people standing there rather close to those police in riot gear. And I want to go to Chopper 9 pilot Andy Holt, who's been watching this as we've been going back and forth. Andy, the police have finally made it to this intersection at Trade and Caldwell. What are you seeing here, and has the crowd just moved on to another area?
There's still quite a few people that are here in the area, Scott, but they've kind of dispersed around the edges here as the police have been advancing with their tear gas. and their riot gear. So they're still in the area. I think they're still kind of milling around. There's still one or two bold individuals that are right in there in front of the police officers, but no, it's still very active scene here over off of Trade Street near the Spectrum Arena. Scott.
All right, Andy, thanks very much for that, and we'll check back as it warrants. If anything else happens here, we see people casually skateboarding through the intersection or maybe rollerblading there. So we will, of course, go back. And we want to go now to Allison Lottis. She is in the breaking news center with a confrontation between police and protesters that cameras captured before those shots were fired tonight.
Well, Eric and Scott, if you don't mind, I'd like to just give you an update I just received through a text message with the official at that Hyatt Hotel uptown that I've been speaking with. He told me earlier in the evening that 2 of his employees were actually attacked or assaulted as protesters broke windows and came into the hotel. And I asked him specifically how were they hurt, and he said 2 of them were punched in the face by protesters, but they appear to be okay, and that the riot police just sent that tear gas, which we saw live on air, and through the front of the hotel, and that seems to have cleared out the crowds there. We've seen hundreds of protesters through the streets of Charlotte, and many of them went back to CMPD headquarters in uptown Charlotte after dark and pounded on the doors demanding to speak with someone inside. At one point, CMPD homicide detective Gary McFadden came out to speak with the demonstrators who had gathered on the front steps. He tried to calm down the crowds.
If you believe what you're doing right now, standing on this step, is going to change anything, why hasn't it changed?
Okay.
Wait.
Just because nothing happened overnight.
But listen,
the main reason why I'm here, the main reason why I'm here, because all the kids in kindergarten and elementary school, I'm trying to prevent them to have to deal with this 20, 30 years from now. You understand what I'm saying? I'm trying to make sure all these black women still be able to reproduce.
We got somebody out there to talk, and we're trying to get some more people just to talk, open a forum, because the aggressive stuff ain't working no more. We need to be able to have a conversation.
Obviously, it was a very tense situation there outside CMPD headquarters. Detective McFadden spoke with the protesters for nearly 30 minutes until the crowds moved away. Erica and Scott.
Allison, thank you. And while you were talking, we got in a word from Governor Pat McCrory. He has just declared a state of emergency in Charlotte. Again, Governor Pat McCrory has declared a state of emergency in Charlotte, and we've been talking to you over the past 30 to 40 hours about how this has escalated, how many people are getting injured, property being damaged, and so now, put into those terms, a state of emergency declared in the Queen City.
We pulled all of our crews out of uptown Charlotte. We've been reiterating this. That's why we don't have live pictures on the ground, because of the dangers out there. One of our reporters was Deshawn Brown. We want to go to Deshawn now with more about what she saw and heard in uptown tonight. Deshawn?
Well, tonight really started as a peaceful protest. The crowd started marching from Trade and Tryon around 6 this evening, but it really wasn't until that march made it into the Omni Hotel that I noticed the atmosphere completely shift. We want to show you now live images from Chopper 9 Sky Zoom. Protesters still there, and throughout the night the crowd had only gotten bigger. Initially, this started as a silent, still protest, but as the night went on, we started to hear cries of "Hands up, don't shoot," "Being black is not a crime," and then the crowd started marching. Now tonight, we also witnessed people out there amongst the crowd with messages against the police. So there were a few people with just a different mindset. Now, as for that mood shifted, I started to notice law enforcement in tactical gear as we got closer to the epicenter and protesters started to go inside. But it really was when that crowd marched to the Omni Hotel and started to go in that the situation got completely out of control. At that point, complete chaos. When I spoke to one of the protesters earlier today, here's why he told me he marched.
For the simple fact that we have terrorists in this country that we were taken alive. Even, I come from a military family. My father served in the Army. My younger brother is in the Army now. If we have protocol for apprehending, even terrorists, overseas, and why is it that because you can say that you had a gun in the car?
And like I said, so many people there with good intentions, but literally you could feel the mood shift tonight from peaceful to pure chaos. Scott, Erica?
Thank you, Deshaun. And again, all this started yesterday after a deadly officer-involved shooting. Keith Scott was shot and killed by a CMPD officer, and the memorial for him in University City is growing tonight outside the shooting scene.
We're going to talk to Joe Bruno here in just a second, but want to reiterate something we said earlier about a state of emergency being declared in uptown Charlotte by the governor, which means the National Guard can now be brought in. So, Joe, you were out at the scene last night when it got very tense, but out at the scene today, it was not like what we saw last night. There was a lot more talking.
Right. It's the complete opposite of what we saw last night in the images we are seeing right now. People were coming together to talk about what happened. They were saying prayers and asking for unity. A group of about 30 people came to the spot where Keith Scott was shot and killed. They lit candles and peacefully discussed ways to move forward. This is exactly what family members of Scott wanted. We want to reiterate, his wife released a statement today calling on people to not hurt each other or damage property. She asked people to protest peacefully. And I spoke with neighbors and people who came to the vigil. They said they wanted to honor that request and show the world violence and looting is not the proper way to make a point.
No one person really has the answer. My only advice is that we all really need to look at each other as human beings.
And I spoke with University City partners as well. They tell me they were prepared for more protests and riots tonight. Luckily, that did not happen in University City.
Did not happen there, but happened in Uptown. Thank you, Joe.
Joe, thanks. Want to go back to Chopper 9 and reiterate some of the facts we have tonight. At least one person was shot and is now on life support in Uptown. One officer was injured and taken to the hospital in these violent protests. Governor McCrory has declared a state of emergency for the city of Charlotte at the request of Charlotte's police chief tonight. We'll be right back.
Spectrum. The ABLE Act creates a 529 account that allows parents and or adults with a disability to put money aside so they don't disrupt their Medicaid or SSI benefits. Richard Burr has helped 15,000 to 20,000 families who have children with autism.
Without Richard Burr, our children and other people's children would not have the benefit of saving for their future. We trust Richard Burr.
I'm Richard Burr, and I approve this message.
With the name trusted for 80 years, you have the compassion of the cross, the security of the shield, and the best choice of doctors and hospitals, giving you the confidence to move forward. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Live fearless.
Here we go. How about a little straight talk on savings? You might already know Hyundai Elantra has a lower MSRP than Civic and Corolla, okay? But when you consider the far superior bumper-to-bumper warranty and all the features you get with Elantra that Civic and Corolla don't have or charge extra for, Elantra savings really stack up. Choose wisely. Choose Hyundai. All with America's best warranty. Drive a new Elantra with zero down, $199 a month. $199 a month at your local Hyundai dealer.
I'm really good at war. I love war in a certain way. Including with nukes. Yes, including with nukes. I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me.
Nuclear is just the power, the devastation is very important to me. I want to be unpredictable.
And we're back now live at 11:23 tonight with continuing coverage of a chaos going on in Uptown Charlotte. All this starting after a deadly officer-involved shooting yesterday, a CMPD officer killing a man. And then tonight, one person has been shot uptown and is said to be on life support after a civilian-on-civilian shooting. Also, in addition, a police officer has been transported to the hospital as well. And then just moments ago, we heard from Governor Pat McCrory declaring a state of emergency in Charlotte, meaning that the National Guard can now be brought in. CMPD calling on other resources to try to get this situation under control.
Now, that intersection at Trading Caldwell is now somewhat clear, and I want to show you why. Video from moments ago as police were firing multiple canisters of tear gas here. You can see the flash as the tear gas canisters are being launched, and then there's a burst They let off the tear gas, and you can see them rolling down the street. But as we've seen again, sometimes we've seen people throwing those canisters back at police officers. But here you can see 6, 7, 8, 9 canisters of tear gas. I would imagine the entirety of Uptown with a windy night like tonight in some form or another smells like tear gas, and a lot of people, if they're not in this area, are having problems. So that's how police got this particular intersection cleared. Again, this video from a short time ago.
And just coming into our newsroom, a spokesperson from CMC Hospital saying that they are now treating there at least 5 patients from tonight's protests. That includes the one CMPD officer we told you about with injuries. Also, it includes the person who was shot earlier, who we know is in very critical condition, said to be on life support. And then 3 other patients as well. They're being treated for tear gas exposure. And we've been showing you those tear gas things going off all throughout the past hour.
I'm going to imagine there are a lot of other people that are just suffering from the tear gas and trying on their own to handle that. And as you said, in the last hour, the governor issuing that statement saying that Chief Kropotny requested the Highway Patrol to send troopers in as well to help CMPD officers. And he said, I support and commend the law enforcement officials for their bravery and courage in this difficult situation.
Again, we want to reiterate that there were other peaceful protests tonight. It started off peaceful a little bit after 4:30, and that is the goal of the Scott family, officials, religious leaders, and others.
We've got Alexa Ashwell with us now. She was out at Marshall Park around 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, when things were, of course, more about a civil discourse.
Yes, it certainly. What was going on at Marshall Park, nothing like we've seen right now and in the past couple of hours. Very peaceful. It was a vigil for Keith Scott, and then that vigil branched off into a protest, and it had a little bit of a different feel. Listen to this.
Everybody is an important piece of the puzzle when we start talking about black economic power.
Now that man with the megaphone spoke to the crowd for quite a while. The protest was by no means violent. This crowd was just a little bit louder, saying change must happen, specifically by people of color taking action in an economic sense by supporting black-owned businesses. Now just feet inches away, another crowd, the vigil we were talking about, held by Mothers of Murdered Offspring. The organization hosts vigils for homicide victims. This one, of course, for the man, Keith Scott, shot and killed by the officer. This crowd, as you can see, held candles, prayed, and stressed the need for unity.
In the more peaceful gathering of individuals serving a purpose, not out looting, not doing anything that's causing any harm to the city or to the community.
So unfortunately, second night in a row, violent, but certainly nothing violent at Marshall Park tonight.
We're hoping that everything returns back to being peaceful uptown. Thank you, Alexa.
Alexa, thank you. And back to live pictures from Chopper 9. Police again at this intersection in their riot gear trying to control these crowds. Channel 9 Eyewitness News continuing coverage of the unrest in uptown. We see people on four-wheelers. I mentioned this earlier. That guy's got an American flag on the back of these four-wheelers that are buzzing around uptown Charlotte right now. We'll try to get more information about this, and not much police can do about this at that very moment. Stay with Channel 9. We'll be right back.
50, a hot steaming pile of Mr. Rhubarb's news nuggets. There's got to be a better way to say that.
99.7 to Fox.
What does Guillermo have in common with an Academy Award winner?
You were born in Mexico. Wow. And yet you turned out very differently.
New tonight, Lupita Nyong'o returns. Plus Bill O'Reilly and music by Jake Owen. New Kimmel tonight on ABC.
High School Football Extra every Friday night at 11:35 on Channel 9.
I'm Roy Cooper, and you deserve the truth about the crime lab. When I became Attorney General, we discovered a backlog of more than 5,000 DNA test kits and years worth of shoddy investigations. But what Governor McCrory isn't telling you is that we cleared the backlog. We also solved over 2,000 crimes and put killers and rapists in prison from cold cases. We fixed the problems at the crime lab, and Governor McCrory knows that.
We're looking for something that's comfortable but yet durable and that's going to last us a really long time. I don't want to buy new furniture every couple of years.
It's custom made, so you know it's good quality.
I'm just speechless because it's perfect.
Celebrate 114 years of Bassett with up to 35% off store-wide.
A well-put-together man is said to be sharp. At GMC, we get why people appreciate that kind of precision. After all, precision is the kind of sharp that slices through a crowd This is the precision of professional grade. It's the GMC 2016 model year sell down. Now get nearly $8,600 below MSRP on this select Yukon Denali model in stock. GMC, the official truck of the Carolina Panthers.
Tailgating is awesome, unless you're wearing foreign shields. The Bojangles Big Bow Box has everything you need for a great tailgate party. Anything else, just trying too hard.
People go to Washington and are just in it for themselves. Richard Burr has taken more than $1 million from insurance companies and wrote his own plan to privatize Medicare, his donors profit and seniors pay.
You're watching Channel 9 live right now at 11:30, continuing team coverage of this situation in Uptown Charlotte, where tonight one person has been shot and is in a life-threatening situation, a civilian-on-civilian shooting, and then as well after protests, one officer has been transported to the hospital with injuries as well. Officials at CMC telling us that they have a number of patients there with varying forms of injuries. Now, the initial victim from yesterday in the deadly officer-involved shooting, Keith Scott, his family says that he had a book in his hand when he was shot by a CMPD officer and killed. Now, police say that Scott was holding a gun. His family members say, again, that he was holding a book.
So this is new tonight, an exclusive new picture. Eyewitness News reporter Mark Becker got that picture from this scene that does appear to show a gun on the ground.
Police have said from the beginning that Keith Scott was armed with a handgun as he got out of a car and approached officers in the parking lot of that apartment complex on Old Concord Road yesterday. And late today, we got a photograph that would appear to corroborate that. We've blurred most of the image out, but you can clearly see a black handgun on the pavement next to Scott's feet. Sources have also told us there is dash camera video that shows Scott holding a gun in his hands as he got out of that car. That contradicts what Scott's family has said all along, that he was unarmed yesterday. That narrative, though, has caught fire on social media and sparked perhaps the protest last night that turned violent. We were here at police headquarters earlier this evening when some peaceful protesters who were marching toward Marshall Park approached us and said they simply want to raise a question.
Anytime the police officer kills someone, we got to hide the details. We want to know why is that. We need complete transparency moving forward, or you are always going to have a problem here. This is not the end of it.
Police Chief Kurt Putney also used that word transparency when he spoke to reporters this morning, but said as much as he might like to release video and photographs that, like the one we have released, he said he simply can't because they're part of the investigation. Reporting at police headquarters, Mark Becker, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
And again, our coverage continues. Back now live again with these images from Chopper 9 Sky Zoom. You see police there in their tactical gear, and they have fully stretched across this street, and they are trying their best to clear the scene, to disperse all the protesters and get everyone to go home.
We want to help you get out of your old car loan or lease.
Still trapped in a high car payment? We'll help you lower your monthly car payment.
Get our lowest prices on new Toyotas online now at our internet specials page at toyotaofnorthcharlotte.com, where big city low prices are just a click away.
She'll call 911. Average response time, 11 minutes. Too late. She keeps a firearm in this safe for protection. But Hillary Clinton could take away her right to self-defense. And with Supreme Court justices, Hillary can. Don't let Hillary leave you protected with nothing but a phone. The NRA Political Victory Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Nobody told me to expect it. Intercourse that's painful due to menopausal changes. It's not likely to go away on its own. So let's do something about it. Premarin Vaginal Cream can help. It provides estrogens to help rebuild vaginal tissue and make intercourse more comfortable. Premarin Vaginal Cream treats vaginal changes due to menopause and moderate to severe painful intercourse caused by these changes. Don't use it if you've had unusual vaginal bleeding, breast or uterine cancer, blood clots, liver problems, stroke or heart attack, are allergic to any of its ingredients, or think you're pregnant. Side effects may include headache, pelvic pain, breast pain, vaginal bleeding, and vaginitis. Estrogens may increase your chances of getting cancer of the uterus, strokes, blood clots, or dementia, so use it for the shortest time based on goals and risks. Estrogen should not
Live pictures from Chopper 9 Sky Zoom at 11:35 tonight. Team coverage here on Channel 9 continuing into another hour as protesters remain in uptown Charlotte and injuries continue to mount. We know that several civilians have been injured. One civilian has been shot by another civilian and sustained life-threatening injuries. At least one police officer has been transported from the scene as well. And CMC saying that they have up to 7 or 8 different people coming in to be treated. We do have breaking news that just came in within the past 15 minutes. We told you that Governor Pat McCrory has now declared a state of emergency in Charlotte.
Incredible just to hear that news, and it's not a hurricane or anything like that. Eyewitness News anchor Allison Lottis is in the breaking news center right now with the help that soon will be coming for CMPD on our streets. Allison?
Well, Eric and Scott, what this means is the North Carolina National Guard and the State Highway Patrol will be sent in to assist local law enforcement to help CMPD. Governor Pat McCrory spoke about his decision to declare a state of emergency just moments ago on national news. Take a listen.
National Guard right now to help the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, and we're also going to be bringing in state highway troopers to supplement their needs, primarily to protect buildings so the police can arrest those necessary, these people who are causing damage to buildings and also trying to harm people in the great city of Charlotte.
And Governor McCrory went on to say that he's been on the phone with officials all day and has been prepared to issue a state of emergency for hours. But he says these decisions take time and coordination. We're working to talk with the governor right now. We'll keep you updated as we learn a timeline of when the National Guard troops will arrive in the city. Scott?
Allison, thank you very much. Back to these live pictures from Chopper 9 Sky Zoom of chaos in the streets of uptown Charlotte tonight. Police and riot gear moving all throughout the city, and we've seen people doing damage to some buildings and businesses, and again injuries. One man shot and now on life support. That is the latest news. Earlier reported as deceased, but the latest now, that man shot on life support. Stay with Channel 9. We will be right back.
Interest rates on new Toyotas. Choose from over 1,500 vehicles, and most come with a lifetime warranty at no additional cost. Plus, we have 74 service bays to give you fast, reliable service. Save time, save money. Shop ScottClarkToyota.com.
Seen politician Deborah Ross? She says,
I'm also a proponent of having free community college.
Sounds good, right? But state legislator Deborah Ross voted repeatedly to make community college more expensive. Ross voted to raise tuition $30 million.
Remember, I'm running to be a U.S. Senator, so I care about students all over this country.
That's what Ross said, but that's not what Ross did. Senate Leadership Fund is responsible for the content of this advertising.
It's the Belk Biggest One-Day Sale. Shop Saturday. Scratch and save. 20, 25, even 30%. Earn 10 times points on Cosmetics Saturday. And save big on limited time offers, including kitchen electrics, new fall fashion, men's pants, and much more. Don't miss Belk.
Again, we're back now looking at these images from Chopper 9 Sky Zoom. One person has been shot in uptown Charlotte in a civilian-on-civilian shooting. We're told that person has life-threatening injuries. A police officer has also been injured and transported to the hospital. And then in this shot as well, you're seeing a broader view from uptown. We're also learning about damages to area buildings, the Hyatt House Hotel. Anchor Allison Lotta is talking to a manager there at the hotel, saying that 2 of the staffers were assaulted, hit in the face. There have been damages to the hotel, windows busted out, and also earlier a report from the Hornets saying that the Hornets team store has been vandalized as well. So different reports coming in about injuries and about damage to property as we enter the 35th or so hour of these protests continuing in Charlotte. Recapping tonight's breaking news for you, violent protests have been erupting again in Charlotte after that Tuesday deadly officer-involved shooting.
Governor McCrory declaring a state of emergency in Charlotte tonight, and one person has been shot, and that happened a few hours ago. The city of Charlotte said that person is on life support in critical condition. Early reports from police said that person was deceased. That shooting, they say, though, was between 2 civilians. It did not involve any police officers or any city official.
The city of Charlotte has tweeted out that one officer has been taken to the hospital with injuries. Mecklenburg EMS says it has treated at least 2 other people with non-life-threatening injuries.
Also, reports of some stealing and looting at the Charlotte Hornets team store at the arena uptown. That, according to Hornets officials at the team store. Again, Governor McCrory declaring that state of emergency and issuing a statement saying Chief Kurt Putney requested that the State Highway Patrol send in troopers to help out CMPD officers.
McCrory went on to say, quote, "I support and commend the law enforcement officials for their bravery and their courage during this difficult situation." Right now, one person again shot in uptown in critical condition.
Okay, I want to go back to Chopper 9 pictures because I heard something here about people on I-277. If my producer could repeat where this is on I-277. We're seeing people standing there on I-277. Do we know where in uptown Charlotte? Okay, I'm not getting an answer on that, but all I'm hearing is that people are on I-277, which is the loop that goes around uptown Charlotte. And you can certainly see people here standing in the roadway. It looks like they've pulled some kind of a they call that a cyclone fence, that bright orange fence that sometimes CDOT or NCDOT will use to rope off a certain area. That's what it appears like anyway. And they have their roadway completely blocked off, Erica.
And that's right. They are trying to put something across the road here. We do see this shot from Chopper 9. It looks like various protesters in the middle of the roadway here, and we know last night we saw them in the middle of I-85. They had stopped a semi-truck, pulled some items off that truck and set it on fire in the middle of the roadway. Motorists and other truck drivers said that they feared for their life after being attacked by people on the roads that were involved in these protests where people who are agitators really have come in to join and try to escalate this situation. So it's not clear exactly what this is that they're pulling across the roadway here, but the protesters have moved from uptown Charlotte right onto the highway here along I-277 rather.
We see some explosions there at the bottom of our screen. Hard to tell exactly what those are. It was a blast similar to what we would see when tear gas canisters were being set off. I know, Allison, you said you might have some information on this. I don't know if we can get your mic or bring you on over to some more information about what you know is happening here.
Right. I've just been looking on Twitter and following our reporters who are in the newsroom, watching the scene unfold and working their sources. And our reporter Joe Bruno was tweeting that these protesters are on 277, but crews and police are trying to set up cones to try to stop them from going even further down the interstate. And he said this was similar to what they did in an effort to stop the protesters on 85 last night.
We are trying to get a phone number with Governor McCrory. I'm going to ask my producers again if we can get any indication as to where this is on I-277. That is the loop that goes around uptown Charlotte. So I think it's important to know exactly where they are. We are trying to get that information. Now, if that is South Boulevard right there, which it kind of looks like, this would be I-277 near South Boulevard, which is near the NASCAR Hall of Fame, which is in the general vicinity of where some of these protests were. It's just a couple of blocks away from Time Warner Cable Arena, Spectrum Arena now. So let's zoom out and take a closer look there. It's hard for me to tell exactly. That 277 Caldwell Street Bridge is what I'm hearing now. 277 Caldwell Street Bridge is where protesters are trying to get onto the highway. So we have been warning people tonight to stay out of uptown. Now, unfortunately, maybe we need to tell people to stay off the 277 loop because it's dark out there. You can see not very well illuminated. And if these people stand in the road, they could get seriously hurt, and the people driving by as well.
And anchor Allison Lottis is standing by. Allison, did you have some more information to pass along?
Right. I just saw another tweet from our reporter, Joe Bruno. He's helping gather information for us, and he said the cones are being blocked for the outbound lanes of I-277, and he writes they are shooting fireworks towards passing cars.
Okay, that's
now
what
we know with everything that unfolded on I-85 last night, we had interviews with people who were driving their vehicles and just trying to get home and were caught in the crossfire of the protests. In that case last night during the protest, we know that rocks were being used. We certainly hope we don't see that same scene unfold tonight on I-277.
I've got a better idea now, because what we saw, Caldwell Street is basically what becomes South Boulevard. So what you were seeing was the South Boulevard Bridge. Now you are heading toward the light rail tracks that we saw, and then they're coming up under College Street right now. So what you're looking at is protesters walking along 277, going past College Street. So in general, they are going towards I-77 right now. That appears to be people standing on top of a car and going down the highway. So I'm going to imagine that maybe police are blocking off the roadway behind these folks, but effectively this part of 277 appears to be shut down in both directions. They're now going under College Street, right next to the Westin Hotel here in Charlotte. That is the bridge right there, as you see people looking on right now, heading towards South Tryon. Cones, as we were hearing, were put up to try to keep people away from this area. And again, Erica, seeing people standing on the roof of that car and standing in the windows and just milling about in the middle of the highway.
And let's go to Chopper 9 pilot Andy Holt. Andy, you've been tracking them as they move from the center of uptown Charlotte to now onto this major roadway. And this is becoming dangerous for the protesters as well. So talk to us about what you've seen out there.
Yeah, Eric, and this is a section of the John Belk Freeway here overlooking College Street, as Scott was just mentioning. It began actually on the South Boulevard Caldwell overpass, and they've kind of made their way back towards Snoopy's lighting it up there. The police helicopter's actually lighting it up a little bit for the law enforcement. But yeah, the road is actually shut down a little bit further back around the loop. Back over toward 3rd Street is actually shut down with those cones you were mentioning earlier as well. So a lot of cars that are trying to back up here to get back onto the ramp to get actually off of the John Belk here, but still a lot of traffic on the John Belk Freeway that's being affected by this as these protesters kind of cause these disruptions and make their way towards Bank of America Stadium.
Yeah, right now at this point they are just going getting near Church Street, and they're at Tryon right now. And the next exit down there is going to be well toward Mint Street, but right near Bank of America Stadium, where Mint Street goes under the highway. So if you know anyone who's going to be heading out on the highway or heading out anywhere near uptown, or maybe just heading out for work on a very late shift, you need to be aware of this highway being closed. We're not seeing as many people as we saw on I-85 yesterday, but certainly that's when they stopped tractor trailers, started pulling things out of the back, and they set fires, Erica, in the middle of the highway. What I'm not seeing is any law enforcement right now down there on the highway. We see some cars with flashing lights, and I'm sure police are aware. Charlotte-Mecklenburg police really have their hands full tonight. That's why we see the state of emergency, so the National Guard can come in. That's why they've requested state troopers as well come in to help. But that's going to take a bit of time, as CMPD is doing the best that they can under this situation.
Earlier tonight, the mayor of Charlotte saying that the Department of Justice was going to be sending in people to help tomorrow from the tactical perspective as well. And again, we heard that statement from Governor Pat McCrory declaring a state of emergency. Our producer's working right now to try to get the governor on the phone so we can speak to him live tonight. In his statement saying that he called on the National Guard and called on the state of emergency at the request after the CMPD police chief put that out. so that CMPD can get some assistance, because again, we're in the second night of these protests, going into an agitated state, becoming violent, people being injured seriously, businesses being damaged, and other people, innocent bystanders, being really hurt and scared by everything that's going on.
We are hearing that some cars that have been passing by, but it looks like the freeway looks pretty dead right now. But some of the cars going by that demonstrators, and at this point I think we can call them people who are rioters, if they're throwing things at cars, these people are trying to damage some vehicles as well. And we saw some fireworks being set off or launched at vehicles earlier. I haven't seen that too recently, but you can see all those dots down there. Those are all people walking down the middle of the highway right now. And again, this is happening on I-277 in uptown Charlotte. They're near Tryon Street and Church Street, but they actually got on the highway down by South Boulevard. So there could be folks stretching all the way between South Boulevard and Church Street right now. You can see the police helicopters out there trying to illuminate this, and I'm sure they're trying to muster what support they can to get out here on the highway.
Let's go back to anchor Allison Lattis, who's been gathering information as well. Allison, what update do you have for us?
Well, we've been talking a lot about the group of folks that have now gotten onto I-277 and they're making their way towards Bank of America Stadium. I mentioned just a few minutes ago that reporter Joe Bruno was tweeting that he was seeing them shoot off fireworks at passing cars, and I've just been scanning through social media for the past few minutes while you guys have been updating our viewers, and I see that our newsroom, our social media folks in the newsroom have posted that it is reported rocks or items are being thrown at passing vehicles. So we do want to alert the drivers, if you are headed in that direction or on I-277, you need to be aware of that. We have not heard of any injuries because of that, but we do know that last night a very similar scene unfolded on I-85 in the University City area, in which we actually did interviews with people who were in their cars and trying to get home and had their windshield smashed. We certainly hope that does not happen tonight. But as we can see here from Chopper 9 Sky Zoom, people are trying to drive on the interstate and it's very dark and they are being forced to dodge all of these people. Dozens of people we're seeing running at the moment in the area of I-277 as the demonstrators are reported to be throwing items, potentially rocks or other items, at the cars on the interstate. Just avoid this area of I-277 if you do have to travel at all in the area tonight.
Okay, thanks, Allison. Right now, again, we know one person was shot earlier this evening in a civilian-on-civilian shooting in the heart of uptown, and that person has life-threatening injuries, and then still hours later the crowds remain. You see them kind of running rampant, some on the highway, some across the tracks here. These people kind of scattering, spreading about, CMPD trying to do its best, forming lines in various areas to try to get them to move out, trying to use tear gas, everything that they can to get the crowd to disperse. But again, it does not appear to be wrapping up out there anytime soon.
What we're seeing here is the Stonewall Station right behind the West in Charlotte. This is also a construction site. This is where they're putting in the Whole Foods in this new development in uptown Charlotte, and we can see people now that they're in the light really sprinting. We saw some people picking up, it could have been rocks, I'm not sure, but reaching down into the tracks. So I'm sure that businesses in this area are perhaps closely monitoring this as they are behind the Westin Hotel and heading really over towards the Charlotte Convention Center right now. They're heading back toward, this group of people anyway, towards Stonewall Street. This is just a slice of the group of protesters that we've seen tonight, but the part of that group has really broken up, and so this is just a large group we're following right now. But there were protesters and still are people all over uptown Charlotte. Now the light rail service has been suspended, so there's no concern about a train coming through here. But as we see all these people running, we don't know the age of these people. They were down on the highway, and now they're just kind of milling about through uptown Charlotte. Hopefully this is the worst that they will do at this point, is just continue to run around on the streets and not do anything worse. But we've seen smashed out windows tonight. We've seen graffiti at businesses in uptown Charlotte. The Hyatt Hotel had windows smashed out in the front and employees assaulted. Of course, we've seen a man shot and on life support tonight, shots fired during these protests in uptown Charlotte. At some point, we'll have to de-escalate this. The problem is this large area. Last night they were on Old Concord Road, which is just really a quarter-mile stretch of road, and that's where police were able to focus all their efforts. Now they've got miles and miles of crisscrossing uptown roads, back alleys, sidewalks, parking decks that are 7 stories tall that people could be anywhere that CMPD is trying to deal with. And with someone having already been shot, there's a concern about, after what we saw in Dallas, about an elevated shooter. And we hope we don't see anything like that, but we've seen one person on life support. We don't know what could be next.
And again, we are hearing stories about innocent bystanders being injured in all of this, being attacked. We're also hearing about area businesses like the Hornets Team Store, the Hyatt House Hotel, as you mentioned, also being vandalized. And so this has escalated into a situation where they are attacking and injuring people and businesses that have nothing to do with the initial officer-involved deadly shooting that took place yesterday that led to the death of Mr. Keith Scott by a CMPD officer. And so that is what first kind of sparked all of this yesterday afternoon, just after 4 o'clock. And then there was a family member, a relative out on the scene at that time who did a Facebook Live that appeared to have more than 30 to 40,000 people watching. And then from that, as we moved on into the night yesterday, that's when we saw more and more people begin to come out and protest. Protests that were peaceful in the daylight then moved to become violent and more disruptive, joined by agitators as we moved into the nighttime. Right now we're seeing these police cruisers coming down the street, and they have their flashing lights on, and we've seen the CMPD officers in various parts of uptown, some of them still in that tactical gear, and now we're seeing those officers coming in their cruisers.
They're at the corner of Stonewall and College is what we're looking at right now, and a lot of those young people have kind of gone off in all these different directions. Just hearing that Charlotte Mayor Jennifer Roberts has also declared a state of emergency, and that on top of the governor's state of emergency that would allow National Guard troops. Now think about this, people, National Guard troops having to come into the streets of uptown Charlotte to keep the peace. A city that so many people thought was immune to this type of thing. In the 11 years that I've been here, I just never thought I would see this. So many times things would happen in Charlotte, always handled it the right way. And we're proving, I guess, tonight that we're not immune to some of the more ugly scenes that we've seen around the country. After so many emotions, of course, are stirred, let's not forget that this is all about a man losing his life. Keith Scott, 43 years old, who was shot by a Charlotte-Mecklenburg police officer. That investigation will have to play out, but nobody is talking about the man who lost his life because of what's happening. We're sitting here tonight and we're talking about looting and we're talking about damage instead of talking about the issue of why that man lost his life and whether or not it was justified.
And again, his family members are calling for peaceful protests tonight. His family members joined by religious leaders in the community, also joined by city and government officials, also joined by a whole host of others, calling on people to remain calm, and if they want to protest, do so peacefully. But again, that is not for the second night what we've seen in the streets of uptown Charlotte. So there are various people coming in to help. We've talked about the National Guard coming in. We've talked about the Department of Justice sending in community police tomorrow. They're set to be here on the ground to help strategically as well, to try to come up with that plan that is ultimately going to contain this and get these protesters, the agitators, to stop for good so we can return to the peaceful city of Charlotte that we all know and love.
It looks here like we've got police moving some things out of the street that were thrown in the street, and we're not seeing the large groups of people. This really escalated earlier tonight when police in riot gear first started to show up. And Eyewitness News reporter Paul Boyd was out in the thick of all this, Paul. And it was at that moment when things started to escalate. And I want to bring Paul in now because he can talk about being on the streets when those shots were fired and that man who is now fighting for his life was dropped to the ground right in front of police. Paul?
Yes, Scott and Erica and Allison, it really is stunning to see these images unfold now, and it does go back to earlier this evening. Peaceful protests making their way up through the streets, and then you could feel the atmosphere change, and the atmosphere just became very tense. Police with riot gear came out looking to stop some movement. And about 15 minutes after that happened, there was a shooting. a shooting on the streets of Charlotte, uptown, right in front of the Omni Hotel. We were about 50 feet away when this happened. Cameraman Barry Landrum, myself, and security expert Ross Bulla from a different angle. I want to show you a little something from what happened here, just some perspective. This is the Omni Hotel. This is the crowd of protesters trying to get their way in for all intents and purposes. The shooting happens right here around the corner from where there's a wall of CMPD police officers in riot gear. Take a look at the moment that the shot rings out. There, you see people jump, but there's no clear understanding in that moment. We've blurred out where the body is on the ground. There's no clear understanding that he was shot in that moment. There's so much chaos. And again, we still freeze it here because look, the wall of police, they haven't moved. They're unaware because they're around the corner from where this man is laying in the street of Charlotte. He was just shot at point blank range. Now, the security expert Ross Bulla and I were down from the bottom angle. We came to the scene saying, was that a shot fired? Shots fired, Ross Edmeyer said, let's go see what's going on. And sure enough, Ross, who is an EMT, went up to this individual and saw for himself. He tried to help. They threatened him. He had to come back to the scene. It all unfolded on Facebook Live with this phone here. But again, just the contrast. The streets of Charlotte, someone was shot at point blank range here, the police unaware around the corner. It's just a striking image that compounds what we had happen yesterday. And to your point, Scott and Erica, how you were talking about, you know, that we're not focused on the calls of injustice. It's chaos, for lack of a better word, on the streets of Charlotte.
All right, Paul, thanks very much. I mean, he was just feet away when those gunshots rang out, and that was the point when we decided to pull all of our crews back in, because that bullet, if it had missed its target, if that man even was the target, could have hit any one of us, any one of the police officers, any of the men and women or young people who were standing out there, a couple who was just going out to get dinner. That's when we knew the situation was so dangerous that we had to pull everybody back in like we did last night. We can get adequate coverage from Channel 9. You know, other people have had reporters out there, and that's their decision. But we here at Channel 9, as soon as shots were fired, said nobody's life is worth a story, and that's when we brought everybody back.
Because some of our reporters out there on the scene during these various protests said that some people had their children out there. Children, in one shot I saw someone with their pet, their dog out there. So a number of lives, numerous lives at risk when you're in this situation that is growing and escalating, and it only takes one person who is not there with the same agenda. One person out there who is not there to peacefully protest, but who has another agenda, either to loot or to cause chaos. And so what we have seen tonight is, again, a situation that has led to one person with life-threatening injuries, and then a number of others, including a police officer with injuries at the hospital as well. And then the situation tonight where people uptown who have not been injured but who are scared. They're scared to drive down the highway. They're scared to be at work in the hotels uptown because innocent people are now being attacked and innocent businesses are now being vandalized, all because of a situation that has gotten out of control.
Yeah, we do know of several businesses broken into. The Hornets did tell us that some people broke into the team store right at Spectrum Arena. Chopper 9 flew over that scene about an hour and a half ago, and we could see a group of police on bicycles out front protecting that business. Here's that video right there. You see those police on mountain bikes, and even they have flashing lights. This was after a really quick smash and grab. We don't know if anyone got away with anything, but police were trying to respond there. Some stores and businesses shut down when things got heated up at the epicenter. And I got to say, I can't blame them for the safety of everybody involved. The epicenter typically has security, but in a situation like this, they couldn't stop a mass of people if they wanted to get in there. And there are several different, 1, 2, 3 different ways that you can get into the epicenter. We don't know exactly how many stores have been looted or broken into or how much was taken, but some of the information that we're trying to get for you. And we also have some video showing the moment that somebody knocked out windows at the Hyatt House Hotel.
That's right. We want to go to that video for you right now. This is video from CNN, and in this shot, you can see clearly there are at least 3 windows knocked out, and then this individual comes over and continues to cause further damage. This person comes over, puts their hand on the camera, pushing it out of the way. And so again, you see individuals with complete disregard for anything that's going on. An official from the hotel telling Eyewitness News anchor Allison Lottis a more detailed description of what happened inside the hotel. Allison?
That's right. We were live on the air, actually, Erica and Scott, when we were just about to go to a commercial break and my phone started to ring, and it was my contact there who works at the Hyatt in Uptown, and I was able to try to get back on the phone with him. It was too chaotic for him to talk over the phone, so we were text messaging back and forth, and his first text to me just said they destroyed the hotel. And so I started to ask him what exactly happened, is everyone okay? And that's when he told me that the windows were kicked in and 2 employees, in his words, were attacked. It took a few minutes for things to calm down and for me to be able to get some more information from him, and that's when he was able to tell me that protesters punched 2 of the employees at that hotel in the face. And when you see the video of the windows being smashed in, I can't begin to imagine how frightening that may have been to be at your job, just going to work like you normally would, and to have someone come up and physically assault you when you are in a building and probably felt safe. So we know that the Hyatt Uptown is one of several buildings vandalized and damaged. We saw graffiti and spray paint on the outside of the walls, and then the windows busted. The manager I know who works there told me that his employees are going to be okay, and that police had deployed the tear gas in the front of the hotel, and that really helped clear out the protesters from that area. But that hotel was located right where the heart of all of this was really getting heated this evening.